Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and speech writing needs. I am delighted to be joined today by Bruce Segal. We will be discussing networking on LinkedIn for business owners and executives. What's new and what's still important. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Bruce, thank you for having me this morning.
Well, it's my pleasure. You were on the previous audio podcast, so I'm delighted to interview you and to actually be able to see you this time.
Yeah, good to see you.
Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our listeners.
My name is Bruce Segal. I run Marketing Sense, and a big part of my practice relates to LinkedIn. I help my clients look better and act smarter in every interaction that they have with any of their clients or prospects. I, for example, write profiles that help them stand out from the crowd. Separately from LinkedIn, I also provide outsourced marketing director services to smaller companies.
Well, thank you for that. Just a general question. Why do you think LinkedIn took off?
Well, I think as the internet grew, business people were looking for ways to become more efficient in their networking. And I think LinkedIn has positioned itself against a wide range of the business community. And I know, speaking for myself personally, it was when I started to use LinkedIn back around 2007, 2009, it was a fantastic way to reconnect with people that I hadn't been in touch with, and then to connect with new people that would be beneficial to the company that I was working for. So it was a way of just kind of making connections. It took the world, if you remember the play, 6 Degrees of Separation.
Sure.
On Broadway, and it reduced it to 2 or 3 degrees of separation. So people like myself that enjoy kind of making connections and investigating and understanding how people are related, it was just a really cool thing to be able to make these connections online.
Now, you were kind enough to prepare some slides, and I want to share them now with our viewers. So, what's new with LinkedIn?
Well, LinkedIn, one of the challenges is that LinkedIn is always changing. For example, a big part of LinkedIn is to be able to share news about what's happening in the industry or with your company, with your connections, with people that you're connected to. And what LinkedIn has done in the last year is to enable you to do inline video so that you can be on your phone at an event, or you and I could be together and you could just do a quick video of me and then upload it to your LinkedIn, and that goes on the home feed. So that's shown with the picture of the ocean there in the middle.
Now, this is not, excuse me one second, this
Sure.
is not live. It's not like Facebook where you can have a live video.
No, but it's really almost live. So you can be taking it and then immediately upload it to LinkedIn. So it gives that same, kind of real-time feel and ability to do things spontaneously versus, uploading a video to YouTube, getting something produced and uploading a video to YouTube and then posting it on LinkedIn later.
Okay. Now, sharing documents.
Well, just one more thing on
Sure.
visual sharing. So what you see to the right there is 2 images at once, and that was something, so like Facebook now, you can share multiple images. You can also share them from, if you're a company and you have a page, you can share them from a mobile device. So for example, if you're at a conference, at a trade show, you can immediately tell people what you're doing. So they've made it a lot easier and a lot visual.
Okay.
On the other side, with number two, sharing documents, a long time ago, you used to be able to share PDF documents, and this was good for people that had presentations that they wanted to share, or attorneys, for example, are into kind of the written document. They might want to share an agenda from a CLE program that they're putting on, and LinkedIn was not allowing that for a while, and they've just re-allowed it. So that's very beneficial to another element. You sort of have different elements being catered to, those that are very into the video and the visual, and those people that are a little bit more traditional. And LinkedIn.
Now, this is the video you can place on your profile.
Right.
And you could also share it as an update.
That's right. That's what's new. The sharing is an update.
Now, the documents, it's the same thing.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, the explosion of mobile.
Well, that relates to the fact that when people are viewing LinkedIn, okay, 60 or 70% of those views are on a mobile device, mostly a phone, but sometimes an iPad. And that's something that I have to remember, because I like to work on LinkedIn on a desktop. That's where I have the biggest kind of visibility. I have the most control over what I do, but I have to remember that people are seeing what I'm doing on a phone, which makes the visuals all so much more important, Bruce, because it's hard to kind of read a whole block of text on a phone, but you can look at an image, look at a video.
Which brings me to my point, this explosion of mobile, how does that impact the sharing of documents?
Well, I think it sort of facilitates, sharing videos, images a lot more than the documents.
Okay.
You would be probably less inclined to get a lot of views, if you shared an agenda for a meeting or a presentation, because that would be very hard to see on your phone.
But it's not just, there are some things where you want to have a lot of views. Within an hour of the conclusion of this podcast, it will be live on YouTube.
Right.
I will send you a link. Mm-hmm. You will then be able to upload it and to your LinkedIn profile. You can use it as an update, which I will be doing.
Right.
And it will be nice if 1 million people were to view it.
Right.
It's obviously not going to happen.
Right.
But it would be nice.
Right.
And that's the purpose of this. It's for marketing purposes.
That's right.
But there are things that you can do when you can share a document, as long as it's not something that's confidential. Let's just say you were traveling to a meeting, and for whatever reason, whatever software you used for collaborating and work, you just weren't able to log on to that system.
Right.
Maybe you're able to log on to LinkedIn and you could share a document. And the idea wouldn't be to get views. The idea would be for collaboration.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. I think you just have to be very careful with how you use that. You could do what you're saying, because that's still a limited group. So you could send a message to that group and have a standing group that you message using LinkedIn. The question is, I think those messages are confidential.
Yes.
The question is, could someone add someone to the stream? If LinkedIn now gives you on those messages an ability to just hit like a thumbs up, so that if you have a group of 15 people and you say, hey, I just want to share my latest podcast, and someone responds thumbs up, then everyone gets a thumbs up in their LinkedIn inbox, and it's a little bit annoying. So
that's exactly the segue I wanted.
Okay.
Because when you're messaging, it is confidential. It only goes to the people that you send it to. What they do with it, that's a different matter. So there's got to be a sort of element of trust and professionalism.
Right.
But it's always reply to all.
Right, that's
You
right.
can't just reply. You send me we're in the same group. There are 10 people. You can't just send me a private message within that group because everybody's going to see it,
That's
which I
right.
personally find very annoying.
Right, you'd have to break it out and send a private message
Yeah.
to the, I mean, I generally limit a lot of my messaging on LinkedIn to the private messages. So I don't do many of the group messages,
The
unless it's a
next,
very small group of like 2 or 3 people.
sure. The
Mhm.
next point on your slide was profile leads.
Profile lead-ins, that's actually something different. So that the way LinkedIn has reformatted the profiles, it's very important how you lead into your profile. So, for example, there should be on your profile a summary, which tells your professional story. Vaguely akin, Bruce, you're a recruiter, to the summary or the objective at the top of a resume, but this is a lot more informal. It can be a lot longer than that. And now, though, LinkedIn has made it so that only the first 2 or 3 lines of that summary is visible. So it's important that, for example, as a consultant, that I ask a provocative question of my audience, that I direct it to the concerns of my prospects, of my clients, rather than just lead in about, I'm Bruce Segal and I've trained 400 clients on LinkedIn. I would rather focus it on the prospect, what they're concerned about, and then get them. So it's almost like the beginning is a call to open. So you've heard of calls to action in direct mail. This is like you're leading with something that asks the person to open your full summary. And the same thing with with your current experience. The first several lines is visible, and then you want people to open them.
It's the old journalism
Right.
rule. Don't bury the lead.
Right, right. And it's a challenge because people that wrote their profiles several years ago, even people whose profiles I wrote a few years ago, it now has to be, in my opinion, rewritten and rethought.
What's this downloading connections emails?
Okay, so LinkedIn gives rather, as I was talking about, the new video sharing capabilities, but they also take away. So until about a month ago, one could download one's entire connection. So let's say you had 500 connections and you wanted to do an email campaign to them. You could download those connections to a CSV file, which is effectively an Excel file. You'd have everyone's email address, which you have as a first connection, and then you could take that Excel file and use it as you so chose. Now, we think because of the growth of concerns around GDPR regulations in Europe, we think that LinkedIn has taken that away. So in order, as you, Bruce, as a first connection of mine, in order to get your email address, I have to click one-on-one on your profile and then on Joe's profile and pull the emails one by one rather than all as in a group.
It's also very annoying because I'm sure you've received countless, Lord knows I have, messages saying, you're receiving my newsletter because we are first degree connections on LinkedIn. And no, I agreed to be a first degree connection to you. I never agreed to receive your silly little newsletter.
And that's what they're probably responding to, is concerns around privacy and permissions.
Groups. Talk to us about groups.
Well, groups are, the things that one aspect of LinkedIn that I love to hate. Groups were one of my initial big successes with LinkedIn, where I was able to invite people successfully to meetings, prospects, because I found them in LinkedIn groups and messages. Sent messages to them. This is going back several years ago. And then groups got very crowded as LinkedIn grew. The groups grew to, thousands, tens of thousands of people. People were into the kind of promotion that you just spoke about, but more in a group setting. Hey, here's my latest blog post. It wasn't really about the group. The idea is for professionals to come together and exchange information, to ask questions of each other, to network, and instead people were using it for self-promotion. So LinkedIn groups were going downhill for a long time. They were rumored to even be going out of existence. And about 6 months ago, LinkedIn just relaunched them. And so hopefully they're on their way back up. The verdict is still out. Excuse me. So if you haven't been active on LinkedIn groups, it's something you should check out. Again,
well, groups never disappeared.
They never disappeared. They were rumored to be disappearing. But
so, what was this relaunch? What's different?
Well, right now, your link. Well, I think the major difference, Bruce, is that the power in the groups has gone to the members of the groups rather than the group managers or owners.
Oh, okay.
So it used to be that the group, as a group owner, you had a lot of control as to you could take your discussion and pin it to the top of the group. You could say, I, as Bruce Segal, group manager, I could say, okay, every time Bruce Hurwitz wants to post to the group, I get to review it first. Okay. And that it's unclear if I, as the group owner, will have those capabilities again.
That's an excellent point. Whenever I publish an article on LinkedIn, I share it with all my groups, and there was a time where I would get a message stating that it was under review. Right. I don't get those anymore.
That's right. That's right. And I think some of the user interface is better. You're now notified of group activity in your homepage feed. So there are some improvements. I think that the verdict is still out as to whether they're going to be a powerful part of LinkedIn going forward.
So now we have migration of search functions to paid versions. What in the world is that?
Well, there still are some very powerful search functions within LinkedIn, whereby you can search people by geographic location, by keywords, and really hone down a prospecting tool to really hone down on who you want to prospect and reconnect with. I can reconnect with people that I went to college, for example. Were in my year at college using the free version of LinkedIn. But over time, some of that functionality has migrated to versions of LinkedIn where you have to pay. So for example, there was on the free version a great feature. We live in a very big area, the greater New York area. Sure. So if you search greater New York area, you're going to get a lot of people, but it could be that I'm doing an event in Brewster, New York, and I'm trying to recruit people. Well, I want to use to, within the free version, be able to select people within 10 miles of Brewster, New York zip code. So you'd get a very narrow geographic area that you could recruit from. You can now, in order to do that, you have to be on something called LinkedIn Sales Navigator.
That's true.
Or LinkedIn Recruiter, which you're probably on as a recruiter.
Actually, I'm not. I don't use the paid. I tried the paid because they give you 1 month free.
Right.
And it wasn't worth the money. I went to, you're correct. You can no longer do a zip code search, but with the free, you can still do location, so
that's right.
Greater New York City, and industry.
Right, that's right.
So, as you know, you can only contact the first 1,000 people that come up in a search, right. And I cut that down because I've got thousands in Greater New York City. I cut it down by filtering through industry. So right. There's a way to work around it. Is it perfect? No.
Right.
But my personal opinion, not worth the money.
Right. I think that I did something just, and almost more for my own practice, where I'm on a paid version, but that didn't have the enhanced search capabilities. So I upgraded to Sales Navigator for about 4 months this summer. And I did find the prospecting excellent, but at the same time, it wasn't worth the extra money to me. And I wasn't really getting that much out of the other aspects of this thing called Sales Navigator.
Let's hope that the LinkedIn gods don't see this video, or we'll both be kicked off the system.
Not really. There's hundreds of people like us that are discussing LinkedIn. They don't really.
I'm being facetious.
Okay.
Now, your last point, I believe, was advertising.
Right, right. So there's a lot of talk about 2-3 years ago. There was a colleague of mine who was very well respected said, "Oh, you need to really be advertising $25,000 a month in LinkedIn advertising to be really valuable to people." And just to back up, this is where you see in your feed, it'll say sponsored post, or to the right you see an ad. And it used to be the truism, $25,000 a month. And now, over the last year or two, I've seen much smaller companies, people like myself, starting to dabble in LinkedIn advertising.
Well, I can't comment on advertising, but I can comment on posting of jobs, paid posting of jobs. You can post jobs for free in some groups.
Right.
But the paid advertising, the paid job postings on LinkedIn is just a phenomenal tool.
Right.
We've only got about 10 minutes left, so let's move on.
Okay.
So explain what we're looking at.
Okay, so then I think that while you have to be mindful of what's changed with LinkedIn, there are certain basics that people sometimes forget about, or maybe they never really mastered in the first place. And the most common that I find is that people that are leveraging LinkedIn don't have a strong profile. If you search, executive recruiters in New Jersey, which is what then you would get a list of people, and along with their name and their photo, you would get like a little one-line advertising, kind of summary of who they are, and that's called a professional headline. And for most people, that defaults simply to their title, so they're missing an opportunity to give their elevator speech.
Well, it doesn't default to their title; it's what they've chosen to do.
Yeah, if they've chosen nothing, then it will default to their title, so that you have to proactively go in and choose something else, which is what I recommend. An elevator speech for yourself in 120 characters or less.
Which is extremely difficult. The summary, if I remember correctly, is 2,000 characters.
Right.
And that's hard enough, but that professional line of 200.
Right, 120, right.
120, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Now,
there's also opportunity above your photo on LinkedIn to put a banner, which can be from your website or something that you think sort of signifies your brand. You can put a lot of, as you were alluding to, a lot of images on different parts of your profile, and that's very important in today's world. Some people don't even really describe, they include a summary, but they don't, under their current experience, they don't include a description of what they're doing, and that's a missed opportunity. Because remember, people are on phones and they're skipping around, so you have to make sure that you make it easy for them to understand what they're doing.
It's not only what they're doing, it's also where they're doing it. Because you've got a company, you should describe your company.
Right, that's right. Yeah, it's important for people to get the whole picture.
I think this is the most critical, and that's your second point, for the best practices for daily and weekly use of LinkedIn. What should you be doing on LinkedIn?
Well, you should be, before you meet people, you should be checking out their profile. And so even people that you might find out certain people you know in common, or where they went to school that you momentarily forgot about. You should be checking out who viewed your profile, because if you have a prospect that you've been talking to, they may have checked out your profile. They may not have responded to you directly, but that's an indication that they're still paying attention to what you're sending them. A limited amount of checking who's viewed your profile is available on the free LinkedIn. That's something that people, sometimes miss.
It's very limited, but there's something else. You can, if you view someone's profile just for a second, the system won't differentiate between that and somebody who's been looking at it for 15 minutes.
I've heard different things about that over time. At one time I heard that you had to look at it for 3 seconds for it to be considered a view.
Well, let me use myself as an example. I get approximately 50 invitations a day to join people's networks. It's the joy of having 30,000 first-degree connections. That's the price you pay. When I have some openings, I just want people in the United States because that's my market.
Sure.
So I will open up people's profiles to see where they're located.
Right.
And then they think that I have looked at their profile because I have some interest in them. All I care about is where they are.
Sure.
So just because somebody has viewed your profile doesn't mean they're really interested in you.
Okay, fair enough. You can also, as a viewer, you could also go into an incognito screen, and then LinkedIn may not record that you're looking at their profile.
That's a good point.
If you just want to look at it quickly.
Let's move on because I don't want to run out of time. You have a lot of good points in this slide. The next one is the 3 types of visibility.
Well, I think what people do most commonly is they look at their homepage feed and they like or comment on other people's what other people are posting, and that is the most passive type of engagement. So it's not bad, but I don't think it's going to do a lot for your personal brand. So I really encourage people to move up in terms of their involvement, to actually be sharing updates, initiating their own updates. Short updates can be, the fact that I just appeared on this video cast and really enjoyed it. And then also ultimately to be publishing articles on LinkedIn. And articles become a permanent part of your profile, and a substitute if you don't have a blog. It's a way to have a blog.
And I would just add, going into groups which are active and participating, asking questions, commenting. I know a lot of people have gotten business because they focus on a small number of active groups and they become known entities.
Right, that's right. As well as you can also get business by cultivating your connections and picking a small number of connections and sending them messages, private messages on a regular basis.
Now, we've pretty much already discussed the LinkedIn search capabilities for the free memberships.
That's right.
So let's focus. What do you mean by low-hanging fruit for developing relationships?
Well, as I said, there are things that you can be doing, like messaging certain of your connections, or also one thing that I like to do is to advise people to reconnect with colleagues, so that if you've been working for a while, you may have been in advertising for 30 years. Well, who are your clients between 1995 and 2005? And if you can find a way of reconnecting with those people, they can be a great source of new business for you.
And also, it's important to include in your profile all of your schools, because I know of people who have looked for former classmates from high school, and they actually found them on LinkedIn, which I think is hysterical because I didn't realize anybody bothered putting down their high school.
Well, I think that's an interesting question for you, Bruce, because you're a recruiter, that I would recommend putting your graduation year, because there's a way to search alumni by graduation year. But I know that, so you make yourself more findable, but I think in recruiting circles, at a certain age, they recommend not putting your age. So I'd be interested in your feedback.
I don't play that game.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with you.
Because I once, on the previous podcast, interviewed a woman who had just completed her doctorate. It was on teaching English to teachers of English.
Right.
And she was literally, after the podcast, leaving for 3 months to do her postdoctoral research in India.
Right.
And the week before the podcast, she'd celebrated her 75th birthday.
Right.
So what does the date mean? Plus the fact, you walk into the interview, they're going to figure it out.
Right.
So what do you go? You know, if somebody is so stupid that they're going to discriminate against you on the basis of age, well, you're not going to get the job. So why do you want to go through all the rigmarole and the process just to be rejected because they don't like the year in which you were born?
Right.
So that's it. Bruce, regrettably, with you, the time goes by very quickly.
Right.
Before I let you go, I want to thank you for coming on. Please share any final thoughts. And as you do, I will put up your contact information.
Okay, well, thanks, Bruce, for having me. And I guess I would just say to the audience, there's a lot to keep up with related to LinkedIn, a lot of new stuff, a lot of things some basics that you may not have done the first time. And what I advise clients is to just set aside a quiet time, 15 or 30 minutes a week, to work on your LinkedIn presence, to do some of the things that we were recommending, like participate in groups, message connections, and improve your profile. And I think you'll find that time well spent. Thank you.
Bruce, well, thank you again for coming on.
Sure.
Thanks for watching. And as always, please keep focused on success.